the most important contemporary regional and international issues.
Right, welcome back, and back to you, Dr. Cherif. We go ahead with our episode tonight because lots and lots of files were tackled and lots of events. But I will start with why Serbia and why now?
Because we had historical relations with Serbia during the time of President Nasser and President Joseph Tito in the 1950s, when it was Yugoslavia.
Non-aligned, yes, the non-aligned movement.
And at that
but
time,
even before, because we started diplomatic relations since 1908.
Of course, because we all know that Serbia was a kingdom at that time, and so was Egypt. It was one of the most prestigious and powerful places in Europe, countries in Europe. So we were strengthening all the relations with these prestigious kingdoms at that time. We all know also that the Serbs appreciate a lot Egypt, because we were at many times the link between the East and the West by our diplomacy, and they're playing the same role also in Europe. They are the link between Eastern Europe and Western Europe. So I think that this visit now, it has this importance, because there is something very important that's happening now. It's the reshape of the geopolitical map in the world. Alliances are being changed, everything's being recalculated. I think that the fact that this is the first visit for Egyptian president since 1987, from what we know, it's very important, because it shows that we are recalculating again our foreign policy according to the new changes in the world.
That is the significance, or this is Serbia, and now, why, from your point of view, Serbia consider this visit of great significance, particularly in light of the global developments?
Because Serbia is being treated very badly by its neighbors in Europe. It's regarded to be an ally to Russia, and it's not member of the EU. And they are trying to, yes, it's not member of the EU, and it's always denied any access into any European activities. It's just sports, and that's it. The Serbs are very close, because they are Slavs in their ethnicity, to the Russians, and this is not appreciated by the Western European forces until now, and that's why now Serbia, it's regarded to be as a border separating again East and Western Europe. It's not like Poland, who is now pro-Western. It's not like the government of Zelensky in Ukraine, pro-Western. So Serbia has its specificity. The people of Serbia are very related to Russia. So the Europeans have a big problem with this country. And I think that...
Actually, can we say, instead of have a problem with this country, have an opportunity with this country, since we are seeing Serbia has nothing to do with the war up till this minute, did not show any kind of sides, but is, and this is why it has agreed, or they are agreeing with Egypt on the same vision, which is a political solution to the whole situation, to scourge the repercussions of this war. Can we say that Serbia could be a good mediator, accepted mediator for the two sides? I mean, not part of the EU, but also not of direct alliance with Russia, How do you read that?
Unfortunately, the Western Bloc and the United States are not giving us, the whole world, this option of mediation. They're applying this way of thinking you're with us or against us. Whether you're with the sanctions, Serbia didn't agree upon the sanctions. Even a member of the EU, which is Hungary, and Viktor Orban, the prime minister there, said we won't join the Europeans into these sanctions against Russia. And now he's being portrayed as someone who has betrayed the European spirit. So I hope that they will see this as a way of mediation. But the problem is that Washington, and especially the Biden administration, is trying to portray this conflict as a decisive conflict, that whether you will join us in the sanctions and the Russophobic attitude against the Russians, or you're not our friend. And maybe this is, and I'm sure this is why President Sisi made this visit, because we want to make it loud and clear. No, it's not about black and white. We could be mediators. There's a third power. And this is coming again to the non-alignment policy that we're telling our friends in the West. We're not taking sides.
Exactly, that's what I meant. Non-aligned movement. We've always been that. This is our policy. It's a constant one. It's open for the whole world, but with no interference in domestic affairs of others, and at the same time no aggression on another country, peaceful solutions. This is why I'm speaking about the opportunity of seeing both countries as good accepted mediators.
And I think that the timing it's perfect. Why? When President Sisi made his visit to Germany, I think if this visit was made few months ago, after the conflict and the military operation took place between Russia and Ukraine, I think it would have been very tough. Now it's easier, because I think that the Germans and the French understood that they have to calm down now, that we have to make another approach. Now they are easing some sanctions when they found that they are harming themselves. So when President Sisi visits a country like Germany, now they're more open than before to understand and recalculate their foreign policy about the current conflict. They know that the sanctions didn't give them what they needed, it harmed them. And we didn't join the sanctions because President Sisi at that time said, this is not the solution. We want to find a peaceful solution. We don't want to escalate. So I think now when a leader like President Sisi visits Germany, I think he will give the voice of the whole Middle East especially, and Africa, and also a country like Serbia also. He will give them the voice to the Europeans, telling them, well, it's not only Washington or Moscow, there is another part of the world that you should listen to.
Actually, there is the rest of the whole world.
The rest of the whole world. And when they say, usually they say the international community, it's the Western Bloc, and that's not true. The international community is all of us. It's the United Nations, which is unfortunately not doing great that time. But I think that President Sisi is giving them the message, there is a third voice you have to hear. We could be a mediator, yes. And now I think that this is the opportunity, especially after the downfall of the Boris Johnson government. And I think that the Germans now know that they are in deep trouble because of the gas supplies. And we all know that in France the prices is skyrocketing because of the prices of the food, especially coming from Ukraine and coming from the ports.
It's all about supply chains that are interrupted in a tremendous way and in an ugly
exactly.
way.
And today in Italy, this afternoon, the government just resigned. So I think.
Yes. No, actually, they did not resign today. It was the parliament was seeing a new government today.
New government.
I hope they have.
So everything is being recalculated again, And I think that this visit is now, it's a clear sign that, maybe it was the push from the United States and the Biden administration for the whole Western Bloc, and now we have seen the effect in England, in Italy, in France, and in Germany. So something is wrong, and especially
the biggest European economies.
Yes, of course.
That would lead me to the topics of the agenda of this very particular visit by the President. But before I go on with our discussion, let me take the report that is wrapping up the whole visit of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to Serbia, and then we'll come back for more discussion.
Egypt and Serbia launched on Wednesday an integrated strategic partnership and signed a series of agreements covering several fields as the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is paying his first visit to the Republic of Serbia, and the first by an Egyptian president since 1987. The deal signed during a ceremony attended by President el-Sisi and his Serbian counterpart, Alexander Vučić, included a host of memoranda of understanding, MOUs, in the fields of higher education, agriculture, arts and culture, environment protection, and others. The head of state landed in Belgrade on Tuesday in the first visit by an Egyptian president to Serbia since July 1987. On Wednesday, el-Sisi held a high-level meeting with his Serbian counterpart and discussed means of enhancing bilateral relations at various levels. In a joint press conference with Vučić following the talks, el-Sisi said the visit comes at a vital time to reflect how Egypt is keen to further its bilateral relations with Serbia, noting that the meeting is a culmination of the joint efforts exerted by both countries to advance bilateral cooperation. He added that the integrated strategic framework launched on Wednesday outlines a common vision for the various aspects of cooperation between Egypt and Serbia, as well as ways to advance them. The two leaders agreed on pressing ahead with political consultations between the two countries through different levels, including the Joint Committee for Economic, Technical and Scientific Cooperation. They also agreed to look into the possibility of enhancing cooperation between the two countries in the fields of trade, investment, tourism, communications and IT. The President also welcomed boosting cooperation with the Serbian side in various fields, especially the military, economy, trade and tourism. He highlighted the common visions between Egypt and Serbia on regional and international files, adding that the state international arena requires joint action by countries that share similar orientations, especially in the areas of energy and regional security. El-Sisi also shed light on the deeply rooted Egyptian-Serbian ties became stronger since the initiation of the non-aligned movement, NAM, expressing Cairo's interest in developing these relations in all fields, pursuing coordination and political consultation, and exploring aspects of cooperation between them. He added that Egyptian-Serbian diplomatic ties date back to 1908, praising the role of former President Gamal Abdel Nasser and former Serbian President Josip Tito in laying the foundation of the movement. In October, Serbia celebrated the 60th anniversary of the first conference it hosted for the NAM. For his part, Vučić said both countries are working on establishing a direct air line from Belgrade to Cairo by March to make it easier for business people to invest in Serbia and Egypt. He also pointed out that the negotiations on free trade between both nations will be completed by the end of October. The Serbian president said that his country is keen on bolstering its relations with Egypt at all levels, adding that the North African state plays a pivotal role as a pillar of stability, security, and peace in the Middle East and Africa. He added that Egypt has achieved a remarkable development boom in recent years, indicating that Belgrade looks forward to enhancing mutual investments with Cairo in many sectors and augment trade exchange volume. Vučić also indicated that Serbia seeks a qualitative leap in its economic relations with Egypt, especially through the participation of Serbian companies in the implementation of joint national projects in the country. Both presidents also discussed the developments of a number of regional and international issues of mutual interest, notably the war in Ukraine and its repercussions on the global economy. El-Sisi reiterated that the Egyptian stance seeks a peaceful solution to the conflict and expressed willingness to exert all possible efforts, whether at the bilateral, regional, or international levels, to achieve that end and spare the peoples of the world the negative repercussions of the Russian-Ukrainian war. The talks also tackle the situation in the East Mediterranean, Palestine, Yemen, Syria, and Libya. In this respect, the Serbian president said Egypt plays a positive role in the pursuit of political settlements for all existing crises in its regional milieu, as well as reinforcing bridges of dialogue between African, Arab, and European countries. He also praised Egypt's efforts to combat extremist ideologies and irregular migration, as well as establish principles and values of acceptance of others, freedom of choice, and tolerance. Following their presser, the Serbian president bestowed the Order of the Republic of Serbia upon his Egyptian counterpart. El-Sisi then thanked Vučić for the honorable gesture, expressing his aspiration that the next period will witness more cooperation and coordination between both countries.
Right. Welcome back, and back to you, Dr. Cherif. And as we were saying before, just before this report, that there were a number of issues topping the agenda of the talks in Serbia. How do you view, or what from your point of view would be topping the agenda of talks between President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, his Serbian counterpart Alexander Vučić, and the president also have been to the parliament, and he met with a number of high-ranking officials, and definitely this morning visit to the Belgrade University. So, please.
I think that, as we said before, we are drawing with our new allies a new map. We have a role. And I think that the president is giving the message to our friends in Serbia that we have to work in our foreign diplomacy, both of us, both countries, in strengthening the new voice that if there is a conflict between the two blocs, because we cannot say it's only the United States and Russia, but the European Western Bloc, there is also another voice, there is another power, another diplomacy. When President Sisi goes to Germany and then he goes to Serbia, that means that we're not taking one side, that we are working also with all countries who are willing to act in the peacemaking efforts in the world. It's also a message to our friends in Europe and Western Europe that we have partners everywhere, and especially Serbia, because Serbia, as I said, it's been portrayed as someone outside of the EU, and there's skeptic about its motivations. But we're telling them, no, we have to be open to everyone. We have seen that President Sisi has met with the president of Serbia. They discussed the means of strengthening our positions in this conflict, that we have to be obvious that we do not wish to see two blocs confronting each other. We want to see a cooperation. We have a role to play. We cannot be put aside. Serbia has an important strategic and geographic place in Europe, and we have also an important strategic place in the Middle East and Eastern Mediterranean.
And Africa.
And Africa, of course, and the Arab world. So we are telling them we could go and work together in a new map. Once the Europeans will come and talk to Egypt, they know that Egypt is open to everyone. We're not cooperating only with Paris, Berlin, and London. We're cooperating also with other countries, other European capitals. We have also good relations with, I mean, that we used to buy arms from Serbia and the Eastern Bloc in the 1960s and the 1970s. So we know how to deal with this equipment. And when the president went to the parliament, that's very important because we all know that the parliament is also the voice of the people. So the committees, when they meet with President Sisi, Serbia wants to have an open market also. So they will encourage signing economic exchange with Egypt. They will see that we are a country willing to work with them, that we're not as unfortunately, we were labeled in the past decades that we are just pro-Washington. No, we could work with everyone. And this is the message that President Sisi is giving. We are a sovereign country. We have our own decisions to make, and we work with everyone. And when we work with the West, that does not mean that we are not working with the East. We're working with everyone, and our national security and our sovereignty is a red line. So I think this is a message that he's giving to the parliament, there. Whenever the governments change, they will always say, as in France also, when it's the right or the left, they all have a specific relationship with Egypt because he meets the opposition also. He meets the ruling party, and he speaks with everyone, and he gives the true image of Egypt, that it's a friend. We are a friend, and we are a mediator, and also we are a power, a regional power, and that's the only message that a normal country, respecting the international law, wishes to give to the world.
Indeed. Indeed, that is for the international arena and all the global developments, which is obviously both Egypt and Serbia enjoy this non-aligned movement membership, which gives them a kind of credibility first, and second for being pivots of the regions. But there were also some of the regional files, and one of them, some of them were the Arab causes from one side, some other was the preparation for the climate change COP27. That was another, of course, file that the president is always keen to speak about. In the international forums, and definitely boosting bilateral relations and cooperation in different domains, not just the military, but also education and economic ones. Your comment?
Serbia is a partner for us since a long time, because one of the main things that it's a Central Europe, and we all know geographically it's very important for us to have also partners, not only in extreme west or extreme east, also the close geographical countries like Italy, like Serbia, both countries, for example, on the Adriatic Sea. So why we will have relations with Italy and not with Serbia and not with Croatia? We have to work with all of these countries. So that's a real smart way to deal. If we look geographically, the president has made a visit in Berlin, in Germany, and then in the Mediterranean country like France, and also in the Adriatic Sea country like Serbia. So we're drawing a map of alliances, economic alliances, educational alliances. It's not, as you said, it's not always about military and war, although we all know that we share the same fight against terrorism.
I was just, by the way, quoting the Serbian president.
Yes.
He said, yes, we have this military cooperation that we can do, but also other areas.
Of course.
Yes.
And I think that the Serbs are willing to also to look at Egypt as a touristic destination also.
Yes.
We all know that unfortunately with the war going on, the Russians and the Ukrainians used to come to the Red Sea. Now we are trying to also to open our market to other countries. Egypt is affordable for them, and in Serbia they could come to Egypt. So we're opening the tourism market here. And I think that the Serbs are willing to do that. I met many Serbs when I used to live in France, and they appreciate Egypt. And I was very surprised that they used to say that it's a great country. They have always had this view about this is a friendly country in the Middle East. They do not know much about the Middle East.
But I guess that they had this experience of loving Egypt since the non-aligned movement.
Exactly.
And the Nasrid era.
Exactly.
We are celebrating the 23rd of July on Saturday.
And especially that both countries always had this economic challenges. We always had the economic challenge to grow, to build, and they had the same thing. And let's also be clear about something that maybe it's a hidden message. We all know that Serbia was targeted by NATO at a certain time, and we have many countries like Libya and Syria and Iraq who are targeted by NATO. So I think that we're giving a hidden message that we are...
NATO and their allies?
Yes, of course. So, and they destroyed the capital there, and destroyed the building of the TV in the 1995 bombardment. There were the journalists everywhere, everyone was working in the Serbian TV, and it was bombed, and everyone was killed at that time. It was a massacre. So I think that we are giving
this attack the Turkish has carried out into the Iraqi territories and the Kurdish area where many of the children were killed?
Under the label of NATO also. And so we have to be clear, we're giving a message.
No, actually this time it was not under the label of NATO, but
it's always
on the pretext of terrorism.
And usually they use the equipment and the info given by NATO. they don't act by their own forces. Because we all know all the NATO members share the info, share the logistics, share also the equipment. So you can use everything to do whatever you want if you're a member of NATO, and this is what's dangerous. And this is what we want to give to the world as a message, that military alliances, it's easy to create, but it will create also problems. If there is
create havoc.
Of course, and chaos. And because every few countries will have a military alliance, and then they will stand against any interference. So I think this is a message of solidarity also with the Serbs, that we have neighboring Libya was bombed by NATO, we have Syria bombed by NATO, we have Iraq bombed by NATO at a certain time, so and Afghanistan. So I think that we're giving a clear message that we're not really comfortable with the idea of creating these military alliances. They say it's for defense. We don't see it, defense, when you go to other country and bomb civilians. That's not a defense.
I can't even... Wait, back to what we were speaking about. And indeed, here we're speaking about the president also spoke about the climate change conference that we are about to be hosting at the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh, and it has a certain, or the whole world is attaching great importance to such a conference and to the outcome of this conference. That was also part of the meeting, particularly that the president has just came from Germany, where he attended the Petersburg climate dialogue that is usually held before the COP. So if I may take here the visit of the president from Germany, taking it to Serbia with the issue of also the COP27 and the importance of also finding consensus in that.
Well, it's an issue that could unite the countries, because it's our planet. Whether you're Russian or American, we all share the same fate at the end if we don't protect the environment. And I think that now we're witnessing wars about gas, witnessing wars about oil, and I think that there is alternative energy. It could be pure energy, and it could be also a way of gathering our intentions. Why not Eastern Europe and Western Europe work together on this in the land of Egypt? So we have this kind of cooperation that we can offer to the world. This summit will be, let's be frank, it will be not easy at all because of the current tensions in the world. It's boiling.
And despite that, we need actions.
Exactly. And this is the responsibility of the main superpowers. We're taking all these chances about the food chain. We're jeopardizing the stability of the markets in the world. We're talking about famine. We're talking why these forces are using these weapons.
We are also speaking about some of the weather conditions that are unprecedented. What we are seeing in Europe today is weird. It has not been happening before.
Exactly.
I mean, weather, the atmosphere and the weather is unbelievable.
And it's very
fires
important.
And people dying, people dying out of the high temperatures. Although
these countries in Western Europe, they have all the equipment to fight the fires, but they are it's being very difficult. We have just read yesterday the firefighters in England are exhausted. Are really exhausted about what's going on. So something is wrong in the weather.
So they can understand the threat that we've been speaking about since years, because this is not the first warning that we were giving for the climate change and its repercussions. Indeed. The president came from Serbia, from a very important destination or station, Germany, particularly after Germany joined or was in this important meeting of the G7, and after which the G20, and also the Gulf American summit. You're reading.
Well, it's clear that we want to tell the international community, and not only the Western part of the world, that we could assist and take part in every summit, but we have our own calculations also. When President Sisi assisted at the summit, the U.S. Gulf Summit in Saudi Arabia, I think his message was very clear. It wasn't to say that we agree with everything Washington wants to say. It was to deliver also a message to the United States, and it was that Arab countries have sovereignty to respect. We do not wish to see militias. President Sisi talked about that. And this is what we have seen in Libya and in Syria. and in Yemen. We don't wish to see militias. We don't wish to see any threat to the regular armies in the region. We want to see stability. And I think that President Joe Biden understood that there is concern about the past policies of the Obama administration in the Middle East. And it wasn't a summit to tell Joe Biden that we are agreeing on everything. No, we're saying that you have to listen to us. And when he went, also President Sisi, to Germany after the G7, it was also telling the Europeans, maybe you could meet, maybe you could have discussions, but at the end, you have to listen to other parts of the world. We are open to all discussions, but that does not mean that we will take part in your alliances, whether against Russia or against whatever. We have to work against terrorism, against all these problems, but in respect of our sovereignty.
Finally here, and just to wrap up the visit of Serbia, and we're speaking here about a free trade between both nations that will be completed by the end of next October. How do you think this would open horizons of economic cooperation between both countries? Well,
we are open now for the investment in Egypt. If the Western European countries and the EU, they have some problems now economically. We all know that in Germany there is problems. Maybe their investment will be more slow, so we have to be very, very quick in finding other places. So it's very smart to talk with other countries like Serbia to come and invest in Egypt. Why we do not cooperate in other projects, agricultural projects, exportation, and also let's say the security coordination in fighting the organized crime and also fighting terrorism. So it's a new horizon.
And illegal migration, of course.
Illegal migration. It's a new horizon, and I think that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is working around the clock to ensure Egypt's security and sovereignty.
Indeed, indeed. Unfortunately, my time is out, and I have to end it here. Dr. Cherif Amir, Professor of International Relations, we thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
And I guess that takes us to the end of this episode. Next episode would be on Sunday, and important debates for the next week. Until then, it's good night.